Welcome to Clarity Matters, conversations about how we think, lead, and communicate in a world that rarely slows down. Today's episode is about something we all do every day, yet rarely stop to examine: clear communication as a core life skill. It's often labeled a soft skill, but when clarity is missing, the impact is anything but soft. Poor communication is estimated to cost US businesses over $1 trillion a year through misunderstandings, delays, and wasted effort. And the cost isn't just financial. When we're not clear, careers can stall, relationships strain, and decisions drift. In leadership, a lack of clarity doesn't just create confusion, it quietly shapes culture and outcomes, often in ways we only recognize when it's too late. In this episode, we'll unpack where communication most often breaks down, even among highly capable, experienced leaders, and the practical habits that help us communicate with greater clarity, intention, and impact. I'm thrilled to be joined by Richard Stokes, founder and head coach at Mojo Development. Richard, it's such a pleasure to have you on Clarity Matters. Welcome.
Louise, it's wonderful to be here. Lovely to see you.
Great to see you. We actually worked together over 20 years ago in advertising, while you were at Zenith Optimedia and I was at Lexus. So communication has always been part of your world. But now, through your work with leaders, you see up close how the way people communicate affects how they lead, how they build trust, and how things get done. So let's get right to the heart of it. With my first question for you today, good communication is often treated as a soft skill. What role does clear communication really play in our lives? And what are the risks when it's missing?
Great question. And straight from the off, when you say soft skill, I get that, that feeling of why has it been labeled that way? Because I think we share a bit of a frustration around that labeling of communication as soft skill and other things as soft skill. So I had a little dig actually as to where soft skills comes from. And it's from the US military gave us hard skills and soft skills. And all they were trying to do, this was in the late 60s, so they were quite busy at the time. They wanted to label the operating of machinery was hard skills. Everything else was soft skills. And when they did it, they didn't mean to, they just wanted to distinguish. We need different skills for different things that are going on. They didn't mean it to be diminishing or derogatory. They actually just wanted to separate it out. I think what's happened is it's been taken, and the way we've interpreted it, well, a soft skill isn't as valuable as a hard skill. And
Absolutely.
Apply that to whatever industry you're in, right? So I often hear people talk about the key craft skills in, my old world, perhaps, advertising and media. That might be the strategy, the planning, the execution, that sort of thing. Maybe the hard skills, AI prompting. And soft skills was, again, everything else. And in there, as I said, communication was kind of bundled in. But as if you spoke to, I'm sure, anyone in the military, they would know that those soft skills are phenomenally important. Communication saves lives rather than be something that should be, again, slightly forgotten about. So I thought it was really interesting to get into just the nub of the sort
It's
of
fascinating.
where soft skills comes from. Yeah.
I had no idea that was the backstory. And actually, because of this sort of connotation with soft, you're absolutely right. It's almost that it's an option or it's a nice to have, when actually it's a core and fundamental capability.
Yes. Yeah. And and why is it so? Because we are humans. We are in relationship with other. And how we do that is through communication. And we know communication, there's lots to communication. Of course, there's verbal communication and there's non-verbal communication. And we know how much we actually understand from another human being is the non-verbal. It is the body language, the eye contact. Maybe for yourself, Louise, you walk into a meeting room and there's an atmosphere.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Your heart feels that before your head's worked out. No one has said anything. No one has communicated in that way, but there's tension in here.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's
So
going
it's a
on?
feeling, yeah, your heart's feeling that and picking up on that.
It's a feeling. It's a feeling. So, I think it's a fundamental of why, just come back to the question, why communication, yes, maybe positioned as a soft skill, but it's so vital to master communication. And I think that can be, everybody listening in whatever facet of your life, to master communication, I think is a wonderful path to follow. Because I think you're just giving yourself a better opportunity to, again, be in relationship authentically with other people, which is so important to us. And that sense of belonging that we have as human beings, because if we're not in relationship, we're not communicating, we don't have that sense of belonging, and we don't feel connected. And I think that's so crucial.
And it comes into every walk of life, not just in the workplace. If we want to have a gardener to help us with our gardening, they need a clear brief, or they need instructions of what to do, or the baker is making a birthday cake. They need clear instructions around what you're looking for, what your expectations are. So it's through every walk of life that we rely on good communication.
With our children, I mean, my gosh, that's where communication is one of the most vital skills that's there. And I've got a 5.5 and a 2.5-year-old, and I'm learning every day about how I can communicate with them. I think, bringing it back to how we communicate and how we lead, because I very much put those things very much together. How we're showing up as leaders is how we communicate. How we communicate is how we lead. When you lead from that place of authenticity, and I know this has been something of a, dare I say, overused term, but it's so important, again, to what people are picking up on. And again, more and more studies around this, people are feeling the vibration of authenticity he does around them. And that's increasingly what people want, especially look at younger talent. I want an authentic leader who walks the talk, who says, this is what we're going to do, and then does it, rather than kind of goes in another direction. So that, again, clarity of communication, clarity of leadership sit for me absolutely hand in hand.
I was reading the recent Gallup State of the Global Workplace report from 2025. And one statistic that really struck me was that managers influence roughly 70% of how engaged a team feels. So that could mean that a manager's communication style can directly boost motivation and performance, or steadily undermine it with such a high percentage of influence. So in your work with leaders, where do you most commonly see communication break down, even among highly capable, experienced people?
Yeah. And that stat is so telling, because I come back to leadership as it's a responsibility that we have. And leadership, it's not always hierarchical. Leadership for me is influence. So you have a responsibility to influence those around you. I think tuning into that's so important. And then as they're coming back to, so how am I showing up? How am I communicating? And when I see it often, or most often, breaking down, and this can be often within a leadership team, within a C-suite environment, Louise, is where emotions are not shared.
Right.
That's where I really see it. So again, you say I'm top of my game. I am absolutely, all my hard skills I have, peaked out on, but I'm not communicating authentically. I am not sharing an emotion. So back to what I was talking about earlier, we as humans, we're going to feel there's a tension in here. But if nobody has the courage to call out, there's tension in here, should we just deal with this before we get into the agenda for this particular meeting? Because you know what? That agenda for the meeting, you're not going to get the outcomes you were really looking for if that unresolved emotion stays there. And what could that emotion be? A frustration about a decision that's been made, anger about something that's not been done, a sadness about maybe someone that's left the business, all of these things that can go on. And I just come back to it time and time again. It's often the emotion that's not shared. And I wonder why that is. And I think we have, again, in the workplace, a bit like we're saying, soft skill communication. I think we have a bit of a challenge around even the word emotions. Oh, I shouldn't bring my emotions into this or into the office. And to be clear, this isn't about me just blurting out my emotions over everybody, but it is about understanding, how do I feel? What do I know about this situation? And being honest and authentic about that. And I see when the most successful leadership teams I work with, the most successful leadership teams I work with, they understand that these emotions it's just energy in motion. It's just part of us. And, a leader may be chairing a session or just running a session will say, okay, there's something going on here. Should we just spend a bit of time talking about that before we get on with what might be a fixed agenda for the session? So honoring the fact that we are emotive creatures, clearly, and spending some time around it can be very useful, productive, a better use of time, I would often say. And I think, again, we can get a bit caught up in, right, this meeting, we've got 1 hour to solve this thing. Going to dive straight in. Maybe we get our outcomes, but so often I think we don't quite get where we might have got to, other than what's going on in here. So even I would say, people listening, give yourself, 5 minutes at the beginning of a session, just for everyone to arrive. And that, by the way, that can be when we're physically co-located, or, obviously increasingly maybe doing it over Teams or Zoom. You can give people time just to arrive into a session, breathe. You can, break the ice a little bit, talk about what's going on, even set up some nice questions that just allow people to connect and then go. And that might feel a bit, well, I'm not sure we've got time for this. But over time, it will create a habit of just slowing down, and then you go deeper. So I've got a bit of a mantra with my coaching practice, which is slow down, go deep, end strong.
Lovely.
Yeah. So you just, I know when anyone comes into the coaching room with me, they've probably been in, I don't know, they could have had a meeting, 5 meetings before they meet me. So if we go straight into it, they're just, your nervous system is just up, right? And you're in your parasympathetic nervous system, and are you going to be doing your best thinking?
Yeah.
Will you be doing your best communicating? Probably not. So if we just slow down a little bit, take some breaths, take our best breathing of the day, only takes 2 breaths, settle, and then go. So from a regulated nervous system, think about how much better thinking you can do. You can ask better questions of people. You can find that solution that might not have come to you because you're just calmer.
I love that. I might have to steal that from you, Richard. I think that approach that you've suggested is fantastic and a deep learning for all of us, I think, to take away and practice.
Yeah, I think, it might feel, again, whenever you do something for the first time, it might feel a bit, oh, what's this? But just repeat it and you start to see the outcomes of what's going on. This is where habit is built and grow, essentially. And again, I see communication as it's a responsibility.
Mm-hmm. You said that earlier, and I find that point really interesting.
Yeah,
it's a leadership responsibility.
Exactly. And how I communicate, it's because sometimes we think, so if the other person didn't understand me, it's not on me. It's on them. They didn't understand. But I think it is your responsibilities. I'm communicating. I'm going to create the environment to allow you the best chance to understand and for us to genuinely communicate and go deeper. And you can only really do that when you come from a place of calm and present and intention, right? Because so much, as you said, so much of our lives are like bang, 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 back to back. What meeting am I in? What's my intention? So just take a beat, and it doesn't have to be a lot. And even if it's the sort of thing, okay, all right, I can't necessarily do this in the session with my client, but what can I do for me before I go into there,
Mm.
right, okay, I can take a beat. I can slow down. Instead of doing that other email, I can just settle myself, make a clear intention about this session that's coming. And I guarantee when you step into that session, the other person on the other end of in the room or on the end of the line is going to feel, oh, I feel a sense of calm because you're creating that. It's called entrainment.
This is fascinating. This concept around being centered for greater focus and clarity is really a strong takeaway. So, if clear communication is a skill that shapes careers, relationships, and outcomes, what are the most important habits leaders should build to communicate with greater clarity and intent?
Mm. And I love that, the word habit in there. Habit
Mhm.
is so important. I know I mentioned it previously in the episode, but I constantly come back to it because, we live in habit. Our lives are full of habit. If you look at it, we have, as humans, maybe about 60,000 thoughts a day. Most of them are actually repeated thoughts from the day before.
Right,
Most of them are actually also negative thoughts. That's just part of the human condition.
right.
Yeah. But so a lot of that, you can see how habit is just part of what we're about and who we are. And our habits come from the stories we're telling ourselves about ourselves. So, this is classic kind of James Clear Atomic Habits work, which is a fantastic book for anyone who hasn't come across it. But really, he talks about identity or stories. So don't say, I'm going to quit smoking. Tell yourself, I'm an ex-smoker.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
love that.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to run a marathon. I'm a long distance runner.
Yeah.
And that, again, the mind just goes, oh yeah, I prefer that. I'm more likely to create habit and follow habit that's around that. And then you create habit. It's triggered. I did a run. I enjoyed it. I'm going to come back for more. Versus, oh, I've got to do this marathon that I've signed up for this charity. I don't want to let them down. You see how it's a very different piece. So just remember, habits, the result of the stories we're telling ourselves. So I share that because sometimes we're very much in our habits, busy working lives. This is my habit. This is how I go about things. I can't really change how I communicate, how I lead. And I say, yes, you can. Because you can tell yourself some different stories and you can change that particular habit. And if I'm going to pin it on a habit that I see in the great leaders I know and work with, it's the habit of reflection
Right.
is the key. And that I see it, all great leaders, they'll somehow have some reflective practice built into their day or their week where they give themselves space to pause, space to breathe. All the things that we've been saying are, kind of hard to find in our modern life, Louise. But it's so important. Put some time in your diary. Put half an hour in your diary. Boundary that and hold that as your reflective time. And just see what you're noticing versus going on autopilot week to week to week to quarter to everything kind of bundling up kind of that way. And again, this is the process of slowing down, getting more present, being more intentional about how you want to be. So for me, that sense of reflection is so important. And I think you can build other habits from that. So, we can all listen. We can all learn to listen better. Remember, listening and hearing, not the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Hearing is an automatic function that unless we have a disability around it, we can all do. But whether we actually listen to someone is a choice. It's an intention. So if you think about, to simplify it, 3 levels of listening from that everyday listening, which most of us are doing most of the time, which is essentially, I'm waiting for my turn to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, classically in a meeting, you're talking, you're sharing something, but I'm really in my thoughts, thinking about what I want to say.
Yeah.
And our choices, again, when we reflect on it, build a new habit. How can I actually lift that up to a different level of listening? How can I be more active in my listening? So I'm actually really tuning into what you're saying, Louise. I'm like leaning in, playing back what you're saying, and you're going, oh yeah, I'm being listened to. That's nice.
So you're showing listening.
Yeah, so you're showing it. And then the next phase up from that is that deeper empathetic listening. Well, actually, that's listening for what's not being said. A bit
Right.
like the brief that the client, they show you the brief over here, but actually, because I've really listened to you and what you're talking about, I know the brief is actually this one over here. And we get to there. Wow. There's the juice of leadership, of great communication. And again, you can build a habit around it when you reflect, when you slow down and make that kind of choice.
You're not open to that sort of third level if you're still at the first levels where you're just thinking about what you're going to say next. You're just not open to it. So it's really such a conscious decision to be in that fully engaging, empathetic sort of state of listening.
Absolutely. And, I do say to people when I sort of share this kind of work, look, being in that level of listening, empathetic listening, it's not all day, every day. Okay. I coach maybe 4 or 5 hours a day and I'm in that, and that's enough.
Yeah.
I couldn't really do much more than
Yeah.
that, because it is, what is it? The brain, 2% of our body weight, 20% of our energy consumption. So, it's churning away when you're in that level for sure.
Your point on reflection, which I think is so strong, it does lead us really nicely into my next set of questions before we wrap up. So, if we could take a step back for a moment, and I have a couple of questions I'd love to ask all of my guests. Um, so, this year marks 20 years of Claritas. Over that time, communications, as you know, has evolved rapidly in scale, speed, and scrutiny, but some lessons still endure. So if you could go back to your 20-year-old self, what would be your one piece of career advice that you would give if you were taking yourself back to 20?
Yeah. So when I was 20, I was in a hurry.
Right.
Everything, everything was about the next thing. I was never really satisfied with what I was doing. It's always the next thing. So, got to university, great, but what do I do after that? Where will I travel to? What job will I get? And I was always in the future. So what I have learned, and I've been sharing some of it in here, is just slowing down,
Mm.
relaxing. So if I spoke to 20-year-old Richard right now, I'd say relax.
Would you
Yeah,
relax?
relax. It's all coming. Don't worry. You'll find the path. Just relax and trust. I think the two go very close hand in hand. I didn't have a lot of trust then in what me, and I was in this such a rush.
Yeah.
Slow down. But I think that is, the older we get, the more wisdom that arrives if you let it. Yeah, I would definitely say just relax.
So that sense of being in the present, enjoy that moment, enjoy, or just be in that moment, just be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A sense of presence, a sense of just being versus doing was completely alien to me. And we do, there is a certain phases of life where we are moving just naturally. But I think it would have helped if I had just pause, just breathe, just be here, just enjoy it. Yeah.
Lovely. And if you could shift gears, so we're looking ahead now.
Mm,
If you could put one idea or piece of advice into a 20-year time capsule,
yeah.
what would it be and why does it matter?
So, yeah, 20 years hence, I mean, this is the thing. What will the world look like? So could go one of many ways. But when I think about the question and what would be the best piece of advice I could leave, whether my boys are opening it, whoever's opening this time capsule, it would be around actually nature and what nature offers us, whether we're, highly technical, living on the moon at this point, or there's been utter chaos in the world and, nature's under enormous threat. But what nature allows us to do is remember, and just again, to what I was saying earlier about just slowing down. So nature is the theme, but I did think about this series that there's a very specific thing I would put into the time capsule, And that is an old school Ordnance Survey map showing some lovely walking trails in whatever area I pick. It could be here in Ibiza where I live, for example, and places along that trail to stop and pause and talk with whoever you're with. So if I could gift anything, it would be like, take this map, walk these trails through nature. You know, what I love, sometimes I'm here and I do live in a very beautiful place, and I can look at a valley and go, this hasn't changed in 100 years or 200 years, where there has been no building and maybe there's a road, but there was a track there before. You think, wow, what would it have been like then if someone was looking forward from that time? And you sort of have this almost this connection with what's gone before. And I find that very, very powerful. But yeah, if I could allow people just to take that walk through nature, remember what nature can offer us, whatever the future looks like. I think nature's always our friend, is always there for us.
And lovely that you've included the talk in that as well. So the walk and the talk, which we know can be such an effective way of communicating with everyone, at work, family, friends, such a sort of powerful connection activity.
Yeah. My wife and I often, when we've got a big sort of challenge, conundrum to solve together, we say, let's take it for a walk.
Yeah.
And we get out, and where we can get to in that time is so much greater than trying to sit, across a table and kind of work it out. And I would love, I'd love to bring that technique more into the boardroom per se, the classic walk and talk, because, we're stimulating both sides of the brain as well. So they're both, stimulated. We're not actually staring at someone in the face. You're side by side. You tend to get more of that opportunity to speak a bit more freely, a bit more openly, comes from that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Richard. This has been such a thoughtful conversation. It's a great reminder that communication sits at the heart of everything that we do, our work, our relationships, and the decisions we make every single day. When we get clearer, we create better outcomes everywhere, it seems. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
My absolute pleasure. It's been great talking to you, Louise. Thank you.
So good to see you. You've been listening to Clarity Matters. Follow the series for more concise conversations with leading voices shaping modern communication. Because in B2B comms, clarity always matters. Thanks for being with us.